Hey gang, welcome to another tabletop gaming nostalgia trip. Today we're taking a quick look at Famous Monsters, a complete self-contained tabletop miniatures adventure gaming kit from Heritage USA, released way back in 1981, which included miniatures, paints, a painting guide, game rules, and a paper map board, allowing players to pit stout-hearted heroes and villagers against Dracula, the Wolfman, Frankenstein's monster, and other classic creatures in an attempt to rescue a kidnapped heroine from the legendary Castle Frankenstein. So if you were playing fantasy RPGs or other tabletop miniatures games back in the late 1970s and early 80s, as I was, chances are you were using minis from companies like Minifigs, Archive, Grenadier, Citadel, Relpartha, and or Heritage USA. So a few months ago I happened to be reminiscing at our FLGS about the old Heritage USA Dungeon Dwellers paint and play set that I had back in the early 1980s, which was pretty revolutionary for the time because it was essentially a complete dungeon crawl game in a box with paints and minis included. Sadly, that old crypto sorcery set is languishing in a landfill somewhere, but our good buddy Mark mentioned that he'd received the Famous Monster set from Heritage, which I remember seeing advertised, for Christmas some 40 years ago, and that he kept it, or at least most of it. The paints are gone, but the game and the figures still endure. Anyway, Mark was kind enough to lend Famous Monsters to me so I could share this vintage relic with all of you. So thanks, Mark. I'm really glad you held on to this. So the premise behind Famous Monsters is that a young nobleman named Karl and his fiancée Elsa are visiting a small village in the German Alps where strange events have been happening, perhaps connected to the formerly abandoned but now apparently reoccupied Castle Frankenstein. When Elsa is suddenly abducted and whisked off to said castle, Karl organizes a rescue party made up of Dr. Van Helsing, the local burgermeister, the police inspector, and an obligatory mob of angry villagers to retrieve Elsa and root out the evil forces terrorizing the village. As I mentioned, Famous Monsters is a complete set that provides everything players need to paint the miniatures and play the adventure. And the painting instructions are actually fairly sophisticated for 1981, with information on priming, painting, stains, washes, dry brushing, and clear coating. Each figure in the set not only has its own game stats, but also a suggested color scheme. Frankenstein's monster, for instance, has a speed of 2, fighting ability of +3, and is impossible to kill with normal wounds, though he is panicked by fire and vulnerable to fire. He can also be killed by the special devices in Dr. Frankenstein's secret lab. And then there's suggestions on how to paint his various features using the base colors, and then the washes, which are just diluted base colors. In addition to Frankenstein's monster and the Bride of Frankenstein, the monster forces also include Dracula, Vampire Woman, the Wolfman, Dr. Frankenstein, and Igor. The vampires can only be killed with wounds if their coffins, which are hidden somewhere within Castle Frankenstein, are discovered and destroyed. The Wolfman also cannot be killed by regular wounds, though if the attacker is carrying wolfbane, it's a different story, and the werewolf can be instantly killed by a silver bullet. Dr. Frankenstein and Igor, I want to call him Frankenstein and Igor for some reason, have divided loyalties, and their control may shift between human and monster players several times over the course of the game. As mentioned, the human rescue party includes Karl the hero and Dr. Van Helsing, who is most effective in confronting vampires. They're supported by the police inspector, who has a pistol with regular bullets and also 2 silver bullets, making him very effective against the Wolfman. The party also includes the village burgermeister, who knows the secret doors of the castle, a village hunter with a shotgun, giving him a ranged attack, a farmer with a pitchfork and torch, who is surprisingly effective in battling Frankenstein's monsters, and a brave little cobbler with a lantern and an axe, who doesn't have anything special, which means he'll probably be the first to die. Then there's Elsa, the captured heroine, who's hidden somewhere in the castle. Here's a look at the handy character record sheets and all their combat stats. The human players begin the adventure outside the castle, while the monsters are hidden within the castle and only become visible when discovered by exploring humans or when they're revealed by the monster player. Likewise, the human player has access to Wolfsbane and a silver cross, which is in addition to Dr. Van Helsing's cross, which he can allocate secretly to human characters. So while the cobbler might appear vulnerable, he might be packing Wolfsbane, making him a werewolf-killing machine. Just to keep things spicy, at the start of each turn, the human player rolls on the special events table, which includes occurrences such as doubts assail the townsfolk, explosion in the secret lab, or Igor asserts bestiality, which fortunately isn't what it sounds like. The game ends if all monsters are killed or driven out of the castle, after which they flee into the wilderness, If all human-controlled characters and Elsa are outside the castle and choose not to return to mop up any remaining monsters, or if all human-controlled characters are killed. Victory points are then awarded based on various achievements, such as killing monsters or humans, or holding Elsa captive for at least 4 turns. The points are then totaled, and a winner is declared. Huzzah! So looking at Famous Monsters now, more than 4 decades after its release, you gotta be impressed by how revolutionary this actually was. A self-contained miniatures game in mass-market packaging that could introduce non-gamers to the hobby and was also playable right out of the box. So if someone got this for Christmas, for example, they could be gaming with unpainted miniatures in just 30 minutes. As long as they were sure to, dust the lead off their hands before they sat down for Christmas dinner. And as for the rules themselves, the designers didn't just phone it in. Each character in the game has their own strengths. There's hidden units, special gear, wound effects, special events, shooting attacks, and shifting loyalties. Human characters can even be killed by leaping out a second-floor window, so there's a lot of fun details packed into a tight 4-page rule set. Also, I'm trying to remember, but I don't think there were many or hardly any skirmish-type fantasy miniatures games or board game hybrids on the market at that time. There were hex-based games with cardboard chits, there were RPGs, there were even mass battle fantasy miniatures games, but these skirmish miniatures games were still a ways off, I think. Now, if I'm wrong about that, please let me know in the comments section. Maybe I'm forgetting something obvious, but the point is, I think Heritage USA was well ahead of their time here. It did not ultimately save them as a company, but I applaud their efforts to try to reach a wider audience. Okay, that's a look at the classic Famous Monsters Adventure Gaming Kit, released way back in 1981. If you have any thoughts about this uber cool gaming relic, or if perhaps you're a graybeard like me and remember the Heritage USA paint and play boxes from way back then, please leave a comment and tell us all about it. Thanks as always for dropping by today. I'm really glad you're here. Until next time, don't forget to prime a few projects while the weather's still decent, so you have some stuff to paint this winter. We'll be back shortly with some more tabletop wargaming nonsense, but until then, I hope your autumn is going well. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.